Welcome to episode 4 of my baby series. Today I'm going to be beating Pokemon Crystal with only a Smoochum. As someone who plays a lot of Generation 1, when I look at this thing's typing, I expect great things from it. The Ice type is honestly fantastic offensively, and in Generation 1, the Psychic type is completely broken. Also, in terms of base stats, Smoochum stacks up very well against all of the other baby Pokemon. It's quite a bit behind both Magby and Elekid, however, it is significantly ahead of all of the others, Togepi, Cleffa, Tyrogue, Igglybuff, and Pichu. And how these stats are distributed is honestly pretty good as well. 45 HP, 30 attack, 15 defense, 85 special attack, 65 special defense, and 65 speed. While 15 defense basically means that this thing is going to fall apart whenever it gets hit by a physical move, the fact that it has 85 special attack and 65 speed, which is decent, means it is going to usually move first and knock out the Pokemon that it's facing. After all, as I have begun to prove, in Johto, the level curve means that there is a lot of overkill even when you're using a baby Pokemon. And as a result, I expect that Smoochum is going to get decent results today. In the early game, it has a medium fast growth rate, which is not great. It also has the starting move Lick, which is absolutely useless. At least Pound is a decent normal type starting move. Beyond that, through level up, it learns Sweet Kiss, Powder Snow, Confusion, Sing, Mean Look, Psychic, Perish Song, and Blizzard. By the way, I always forget that Powder Snow is actually a Generation 2 move. For whatever reason, my brain just kind of defaults to thinking that this was introduced in Generation 3. Through TMs and HMs, Smoochum doesn't get access to many great coverage moves. It gets Dynamic Punch, which is kind of useless because of the accuracy, Icy Wind, which is basically invalidated by the fact that it gets Ice Punch. It gets Psychic, but it's going to learn that through level up before it makes it to Kanto anyways. Shadow Ball is physical in Generation 2, so that's not particularly useful. And it does get Mud Slap, but that's basically just there to make Gligar sad. With the egg in my possession from Mr. Pokemon, I head back to New Bark Town and I face the rival along the way. Of course, today he's going to have Cyndaquil because that is the hardest team for Smoochum to face. Although I don't think I'm going to have that many issues, just because Smoochum does learn Confusion at level 21, and that's going to give me good damage to go up against this fire type with. For now, I just have to defeat it with a Berry and Pound, which actually gets very close. Smoochum only has 3 hit points left over when it wins this battle. That is a good example of why having a low defense stat is not particularly good. As I head towards Violet City, I'll just remind you, this is the 4th episode in the series. Please watch episode 1 if you want all of the context. And now, let's continue with this run. In Violet City, I head straight for the Flying Gym to see how it's going to go, but Smoochum really isn't matching up well against the gym trainers, so I decided to go to Sprout Tower to do additional training. This is a good idea because once Smoochum completes the battles here, it's level 13 and has learned Powder Snow in time to face Falkner. His lead Pokemon is a level 7 Pidgey. By the way, I didn't even heal to full health for this fight. I am feeling so confident. Powder Snow easily dispatches it in a single hit, and I move on to his ace. It's a level 9 Pidgeotto, and yes, once again, Powder Snow just gets the one hit, so Smoochum takes a clean sweep over the first gym leader. With that, it earns itself the Zephyr Badge, giving it a 12.5% boost to its attack stat, and it also gets the TM for Mud Slap. Normally I teach this move right away because I need it to counter the Rock-type Pokemon in Union Cave. However, for Smoochum with Powder Snow, I have no need for it, so I'll just save it. Maybe it could be useful later on. After all, with Magby, it was useful to defeat Red, so maybe Smoochum is going to be a similar scenario. The next section of the game is fairly uneventful, so Smoochum arrives in Azalea Town without anything changing. There's no useful moves here because it can't learn Swift, and I also don't get anything by level up until I get to level 21. After I defeat the Rockets in Slowpoke well, I'm level 18, so this is still a little ways off. I'm definitely not going to have access to it for Bugsy, so let's just take him on now. Up first is Metapod. I am hoping that my special attack here is going to allow me to one-shot, and in this case it doesn't. As a result, I have my speed lowered by String Shot. Now that might seem like it was impactful, but I was not going to outspeed the Scyther anyways, so it doesn't matter. Next is Kakuna. I just hope that I don't get poisoned here. I don't, finishing it off with 2 hits, and now it is time for Bugsy's ace. Technically it's a flying type, so I'm going to do a lot of damage, but Fury Cutter is also super effective. However, with its first hit, it doesn't do enough to 2-shot me, and then Powder Snow does more than half to the Scyther, resulting in a second easy gym victory. I hope you can all tell that this thing is absolutely crushing the early game. As a baby Pokemon, it is putting out an exceptional performance. Because of that, I was actually skipping some trainers to this point in the game, and now in retrospect, I think that that's a mistake. I went back to fight them just so that I'll have confusion when I face the rival in Azalea Town. His lead, of course, is Ghastly, which I thought I was going to one-shot, but then he switches it out. I was not expecting that. I don't think I have ever seen that behavior before. Either way, I just one-shot the Zubat, and then he sends in Quilava. Confusion does half. I take a little bit of damage from Ember and finish it on the next turn. So leveling up for Confusion was definitely the right choice. I'll just do a brief post-mortem on that fight. If you play a lot of Generation 1, you will know that Ice moves are neutral against Fire types, but starting in Generation 2, this type effectiveness was changed, so that Ice moves are now not very effective against Fire-type Pokemon. This is one of the changes that Game Freak made that I am not particularly happy about. I think the Ice type works much better being neutrally effective against Fire types. Either way, that's how things are, so that's why I needed Confusion for that battle. Moving on with the playthrough, the section of the game between Violet City and Azalea Town was largely uneventful. However, the next section of the game is fundamentally different. While Smoochum does not get access to Headbutt, which I find kind of silly, Magby got access to that move. Why does Smoochum not get it? It seems like a weird choice. Either way, Magby does get access to Ice Punch, which costs only 3,000 Pokédollars in the department store. While I teach this move, let's examine Powder Snow's effective power. It is 60 because of the same type attack bonus, but with Ice Punch, Smoochum's effective power is now going to be 112. And I hope I don't have to tell a lot of you that by the third gym, having a move with effective power of 112 is just really good. And I think the proper way to demonstrate how good this is to go into the battle against Whitney. After all, theoretically, she should be quite good against Smoochum because Miltank knows Rollout, which is super effective. Up first is Clefairy. The only thing I'm worried about here is that it goes for Metronome and gets some ridiculously good move. And in this case, it gets a fire move, it gets Ember, and it also gets a critical hit. However, it doesn't do that much to Smoochum. This was a good way to demonstrate Smoochum's decent special defense stat. Okay, so I knock out the Clefairy and move on to the Miltank. Let's see how this thing does. And the answer is it doesn't do very well. Ice Punch does so much damage. I am definitely going to 2-hit every single time, but in addition to that, this move also has a 10% chance to freeze the target, and it does on Miltank, preventing it from even using Rollout once, giving Smoochum a third easy gym victory. I thought that maybe the Sudowoodo that follows Whitney might be a bit scary. Ice Punch does not one-hit, and then it goes for Flail, but I survive and knock it out. Okay, so who could be the next possible scary opponent for Smoochum? Maybe the Kimono girl that has Flareon? To prepare for her, I fought the Kimono girls right to left. By the way, I normally do it in the opposite order, just so I'm a little bit closer to the guy who has the HM for Surf when I finish fighting all of them. But in this case, doing it in the opposite order makes sense. Confusion does more than half, Smoochum tanks the Ember well, and finishes the Flareon off. Okay, so what could possibly be next? Well, nothing between Ecruteak City and Olivine City. The entire Lighthouse is easy. There are some fighting types here, but luckily the Psychic type really helps Smoochum out against them. Also, it is worth stating that these Machops are completely impotent. They're so useless. Anyways, with them all out of the way, I head back to Ecruteak City to face the rival in Burned Tower. Up first is Haunter. I really should have gone for Confusion against it, but Ice Punch still gets the job done, so I don't have to worry about Curse. Next, the rival sends in Quilava. I did briefly consider using Sing here, but I don't think that that's the best move. I want to reserve it only for Pokemon that absolutely require it. I finish the Quilava off in 2 turns, and yes, the Magnemite that follows does survive, but overall it doesn't matter, and the final Zubat is easy to clean up. Now, while Whitney did not have a type advantage over Smoochum, the next gym leader technically does. So, how is Morty going to be? Up first is Ghastly. Now, Smoochum has super effective damage here in the form of Confusion, and I am also faster than his entire team. I knock out the Ghastly in 1 hit, the following Haunter as well, and make it to his Gengar. Now I'm faster, so it's only going to get 1 move, and it is not going to be able to put me to sleep because I have a Mint Berry. Also, it's not going to be able to do anything because Smoochum just 1-hits it with Confusion. After that, I clean up his final Haunter and earn myself the 4th badge, as well as the TM for Shadow Ball. Okay, Smoochum is on an absolute tear. When is its first reset going to be? potentially a Chuck who is coming up next. However, I do have a Psychic type move, so I figured that I could face him now rather than going east to the Lake of Rage first. By the way, if you can face Chuck first, it is always better just so that you get access to Fly. It really speeds up the mid-game. To ensure that I'm prepared, I fight some optional trainers at sea, and this levels Smoochum up to level 37, where I learn Psychic in the place of Sweet Kiss. Alright, so with this major moveset upgrade, I don't think that Chuck is going to be an issue at all. Let's take him on. Up first is Primeape. I am faster than it, and Psychic just one-shots. Okay, Poliwrath is next. Now this thing could Dynamic Punch me if it survives, but it doesn't survive, so that is another clean sweep for Smoochum. So far this thing is 5 for 5 on gym leaders. I don't think Price is going to break my streak, but I am a little bit worried for Jasmine. The Steel type is fantastic defensively, and the Steelix does know Iron Tail. Despite the potential problems that Jasmine could pose, I don't think that Smoochum needs much more additional training, so I'm going to skip all the extra camera trainers within the Rocket HQ and just get through this area of the game as fast as is possible. Which, if you know Generation 2, is quite slow anyways. The next major battle is against Price. I one-shot his lead Seal with Psychic, move on to the Dugong. It does survive, hitting Smoochum for a little bit of damage, and I finish it off. Okay, this is going about as easily as I thought it would. Now, Piloswine goes for Blizzard against my Ice type, and it misses, so we don't even get to see how much damage that would have done. And with that, Smoochum has defeated the 6th gym leader, and now Jasmine is next. In this fight, there are potentially two things that can go wrong. Number one, getting paralyzed by the Magnemites, and number two, being hit by a super effective Iron Tail. I don't have super effective damage against the Magnemites. Actually, my best move is a resisted Psychic. However, it does enough to knock the first one out, so I bypass the status condition entirely. Against the Steelix, my best choice obviously is Ice Punch. It does neutral damage, whereas Psychic is resisted. In this case, it takes Steelix to red health, it misses Iron Tail, Jasmine uses a Hyper Potion, but that is not going to save her ace. I polish it off, move on to the final Magnemite, and this one is also a one-hit. There was nothing to worry about. Smoochum goes 7 for 7 against Johto gym leaders so far. And I am sure that you all know how the last one is going to go as well, so Smoochum is going to go 8 for 8 unless something ridiculous happens against Claire. But before that, I have to get through the radio tower portion of the game. Usually this is a section that I like to tell some nostalgic story or talk about a mechanic or something else to fill the time. After all, it takes a really long time to beat all of these weak trainers, and usually none of them cause problems for the Pokemon I'm running. That being said, I think things are a little bit different for Smoochum because of its typing. Ordinarily, the strongest trainer in this section of the game is Petrol, who has 5 coughing and 1 wheezing. Today, though, with high special attack, he isn't an issue. The second trainer that also can be a problem is the rival in the underground. Normally, I lose this fight because I get hit by Confuse Ray from the Golbat, but Smoochum just one-shots it. The second reason I frequently lose the battle is because Magnemite can use either Thundershock or Thunder Wave. However, the rival sends in Sneasel first because it is a dark type, which is technically super effective against Smoochum. After I finish it off, he sends in Quilava, which I easily one-shot with Psychic, completely taking away his chance to use any fire-type moves. After that, I one-shot the Magnemite, avoiding Thunder Wave, and then Haunter, who also has technically a type advantage against me, is easily one-shot once again with Psychic. So who could possibly stand in this thing's way and give it its first reset? Well, the final executive of this entire area, who is a trainer that I very rarely even talk about. He has a Houndour and a Houndoom, and those Pokemon are essentially designed to counter Smoochum's typing. The Dark type counters the Psychic type, and the Fire type counters the Ice type. And this is really a hard counter, because Psychic type moves can't do anything to the Dark type, and the Fire type resists Ice Punch. With my current moveset of Psychic Confusion, Sing, and Ice Punch, I don't really like my chances against this guy. Also, I don't really like my chances against Karen, but we are going to talk about her later. In hindsight, the solution for this executive is quite simple. If I just go to the department store, pick up Return, and teach it in the place of Confusion, I'm going to have no problems. However, I didn't anticipate this fight being hard because normally I just stomp my way through it, so I just saved and went into the battle with my set unchanged. So let's see how that went for me. Up first is Houndour, and right here is where I realized that I had made a potential mistake. I go for Ice Punch because this is literally the only move that I can use against it, and it one-shots. Alright, that is a good start. Next is Houndoom. Once again, I go for Ice Punch. It does just under half. The Houndoom uses Bite, doing almost half to Smoochum. However, because of that, and the fact that I outspeed, I'm able to hit it again, taking it to red health. I survive its next bite, and finish it on the next turn. All he has left is a Coughing, which is easily one-shot with Psychic, so I defeat the Executive on my first attempt, even without preparing. And from the radio tower, I'm going to take us right into Claire's gym. I don't want to waste any time. Let's go right into this battle and see how easily Smoochum sweeps her. Obviously, I one-shot the first Dragonair, then she sends in Kingdra. I continue going for Ice Punch, which gets a critical hit, knocking Kingdra out. Okay, so this is going to be a clean sweep. Smoochum takes no damage and defeats Claire with great ease. That is 8 for 8 on Johto Gym Leaders. However, the major battles that are coming up next should pose a problem for Smoochum. I cannot imagine myself getting through the league with no resets. Before I get there, I have to face the rival one last time. In this case, he leads with Sneasel once again. Kind of an annoying lead. I have to Ice Punch this Ice type, but it just goes for Fury Cutter, doing chip damage, and I finish it off. Next, he sends in Typhlosion. I go for Psychic and almost one-shot. This time I do have to tank a Flame Wheel, but it doesn't even take Smoochum under half health before I finish it off. Psychic 1 hits the Golbat, Psychic 2 hits the Magneton. I did get confused here, however, all that's left is Haunter and Kadabra, and I shouldn't have too many issues against them. I was expecting the Haunter to go for Curse and give me time to knock it out with Psychic, but in this case it chooses Shadow Ball because it must have seen that it can get a KO, but Smoochum survives on 4 hit points and knocks it out. Alright, so the Kadabra will knock me out if it goes for Psybeam, but in this case it goes for Future Sight, giving me an Ice Punch, and I defeat the rival. That means that Smoochum has no resets as it begins its attempt against the Elite Four. The first member is Will. He's a Psychic type specialist, and honestly, he is pretty underwhelming. In this case, I have taught Smoochum Thief, just so I have some super effective damage against Pokemon like this Jinx, for example. However, other Pokemon on his team, like the Xatu and the Executor, I can just use Ice Punch against. There are some potential loss conditions here. The first one is that Jinx uses Lovely Kiss and then slowly knocks me out with maybe Double Slap, I guess Psychic, if it does more damage. Another potential way to lose is that the Slowbro gets set up with Amnesia and then knocks Smoochum out with Body Slam. Remember, my defense stat is really trash, and the Slowbro also has Curse, so it can raise its attack. For that reason, I put it to sleep with Sing and knock it out. After that, Smoochum is One Punch Woman and knocks out both the Xatu as well as the Executor with Ice Punch. Koga's next. I have Psychic, so I'm just going to knock out all of his Pokemon. Obviously except the Fortress. I'm going to do half to it and then knock it out over 2 turns, but it doesn't matter anyways. The Crobat actually sets up Double Team, which is a bit terrifying. It is faster than Smoochum by 6 speed. It hits Wing Attack, taking me down to half, but luckily Psychic hits and I finish it off. I clean up the muck, and with that I'm moving on to Bruno, who should also be theoretically very easy. I one-shot the Hitmontop, tank a Mach Punch from the Hitmonchan and knock it out. The Onix is next, I one-hit it, and now it's time for the Machamp. Out of all of his Pokemon, this is the one that is most likely to survive. However, Psychic just one-hits it. And that was without a critical hit, so yes, Bruno is trivial as expected. With him out of the way, Smoochum has reached the scariest trainer for it. It's the Dark-type specialist, Karen. I have been keeping Sing on my moveset specifically to deal with her. I am pretty sure that I'm going to need it both against the Umbreon as well as the Houndoom to ensure that I have success. Luckily for me, I do manage to put the Umbreon to sleep right away, and then Ice Punch gets a crit, taking it to red. That does, however, make me a little bit worried about my regular damage ranges. Maybe I'm not going to be 2-hitting. That would be unfortunate. I finish it off. Next is Houndoom. Here, Sing misses. It hits Flamethrower, doing massive damage. However, I have one more chance for Sing to work, but it doesn't, and fittingly, Karen causes Smoochum's first reset. The next battle is much worse. I get confused, and my accuracy lowered, I miss Ice Punch, and the Umbreon knocks me out. I didn't even make it to the Houndoom. That being said, eventually I will get the luck that I need. I'll put the Umbreon to sleep, knock it out with 2 Ice Punches, which by the way I can do even if I do not get a critical hit. After that I have to put the Houndoom to sleep on either turn 1 or turn 2. Either will be good enough. By the way, for my 4th battle against Karen, I have taught Smoochum Return. This allows me what I think is a 2-hit range against the Houndoom. However, it just barely survives on a Sliver, which was quite unfortunate. Karen uses a max potion healing it, but it's not enough, and I take it down. From there, the fight is trivial. I outspeed and one-shot the Gengar with Psychic, I can Ice Punch the Murkrow, as well as the Vileplume. So that was a little bit of a tricky fight. It's annoying that I had to use Sing, but overall, it wasn't that bad. With Karen now out of the way, Smoochum has made it to the champion. In this playthrough, Lance is a little bit of a special case. Normally, whenever I have an Ice-type move, I feel very confident against his entire team. That being said, because Smoochum is an Ice-type, it actually has a weakness against two of his Pokemon, specifically the Aerodactyl with its illegal Rock Slide. By the way, I call this Pokemon out because it is impossible to teach Aerodactyl Rock Slide through any legal means in Generation 2. And in Generation 1, you also cannot teach Aerodactyl Rock Slide, so there is no way to transfer it back from the past and get an Aerodactyl with Rock Slide. This move is just there to make players really jealous. And it's also there to potentially do a lot of damage to Smoochum. That is, if I can make it past the Charizard first. Psychic takes it to orange, it strikes back with Flamethrower doing less than half, and I take it out. Okay, Ice Punch really needs to one-hit the Aerodactyl, but I don't even get a chance because it's faster by 7 speed, it hits Rock Slide and Smoochum faints. The solution here is very obvious. I'm just going to use 4 rare candies to take Smoochum up from level 56 to level 60, where conveniently it outspeeds Aerodactyl. Now that I'm moving first, I can tank Charizard's Flamethrower, move on to the Aerodactyl, hit it with Ice Punch, and in this case it does enough damage, finishing it off. From there are only 3 Dragonites left, and as you would expect, they are all one-hits. So Smoochum defeats Lance at a time of 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 55 seconds, with only 4 resets at level 61. This is a good result for a baby Pokemon, and from here, things are actually going to get easier for the Kanto portion of the game, because with the league behind me, the move tutor is now accessible outside of the game corner. I can get him to teach Smoochum Ice Beam in the place of Ice Punch for extra damage. As I smashed my way through all the Kanto gym leaders, a question was eating away at my mind, and that is Smoochum going to be successful using curse strategies against blue and red? It really doesn't seem like a Pokemon that is designed to do that when its special attack is so much higher than its physical attack. I think in this case, it actually might be a better play just to keep Sing to solve 1 or 2 problematic Pokemon. Specifically, I'm thinking of the Charizard, and sweep through Red's team with both Ice Beam and Psychic. If that ends up being possible with Smoochum, I am going to be so happy, because I figured going into this series that every single baby would just use Curse and Return to defeat Red. Anyways, before him, I will get a chance to test out this strategy. You can kind of tell how a Pokemon is going to go up against Red by how they fare against Blue. If the Blue battle is difficult and they need Curse there, then they are definitely going to need it against Red. Smoochum made it all the way to him without any additional resets, so let's jump into that fight and see how it does. Up first is Pidgeot. I figured that Ice Beam is just going to one-shot this thing. It's fairly straightforward, and as expected, it does. Up next he sends in his Arcanine, and here I figure that I have to use Sing to put this thing to sleep. I miss, but I am going to get 2 uses of Sing. Well, that is unless the Arcanine uses Extreme Speed to move first. If I'm able to outspeed Red's Charizard, that isn't going to be something I have to worry about. However, because of this priority move, Smoochum does get a reset here. In the next fight, I'm able to successfully put the Arcanine to sleep. This causes Blue to use a full restore, waking it up. However, because Smoochum is faster, I can just spam Psychic and eventually it goes down. Next, he sends in Alakazam. I figured that using my lower attack stat with Return wouldn't actually do as much damage as Ice Beam would, and I one-shot with Ice Beam, so it's a non-issue. Next is Rhydon. Ice Beam easily one-shots it, and from there, things get easier. Gyarados is next. I can use Ice Beam here. It does do slightly more damage than Psychic, and the Gyarados just wastes time by setting up a Rain Dance. All that remains is Executor, which I easily finish off in a single hit. Okay, I think Smoochum has a nice chance against Red with this strategy, so let's try it out. Before that though, I have saved rare candies, so I'm going to use them now to take Smoochum up from level 69 all the way to level 75. Additionally, to make things more secure in the fight, I teach Rest in the place of Return, and now I'm ready to face Red. Up first is Pikachu. I'm really hoping for the one hit here with Psychic. I probably should have used Ice Beam, by the way, for a little bit more damage, but it doesn't matter because the Pikachu goes down in a single hit. Next, of course, Red chooses to send in his Charizard. Unfortunately for me though, this thing is faster than Smoochum by 4 speed. It goes for Flamethrower and gets a one hit. Okay, so a regular Flamethrower without a critical hit one-hits Smoochum. I have to be able to move first against this thing. So I'm going to do some grinding to level Smoochum up twice. After that I can use my rare candies to get up to level 77, and here Smoochum has 181 speed, which means I will move first against the Charizard, who has 179. The only other piece of the puzzle now is that I need Sing to hit on the first turn, otherwise Flamethrower is going to knock me out. Or it's going to take Smoochum down to a single hit point. Alright, so I guess it is possible to put the Charizard to sleep on turn 2 if you survive. That allows me to test damage ranges against it, and Psychic is doing more than half, which is very encouraging. However, my speed is still not enough against the Espeon, so it's able to get some damage in with Psychic, hitting 2 times in a row, finishing me off. If I played that again, I probably could just use Rest against the Espeon, take things slowly, and then proceed into the rest of the fight, but overall, this was a fairly quick reset. Let's just try the fight again. This time, things go much better. I put the Charizard to sleep right away, and finish it off. From there, I also choose to put the Espeon to sleep and polish it off with 2 uses of Ice Beam, and then I need to continue using Sing actually. I have to put the Snorlax to sleep to prevent it from using Amnesia. If it sets up with Amnesia, I think I just lose because my special attacks won't do enough damage to it. In this case, it sleeps just long enough. It does wake up and use Body Slam, which Smoochum barely survives before I finish it off. Next is Venusaur. I put it to sleep, giving myself a chance to use Rest to heal up, and from there I finish it with 1 hit from Ice Beam. After that, it's time for Blastoise. Psychic does just less than half. It sets up Rain Dance, uses a Rain Boosted Surf to take me down to half health, but it's obviously not enough, so Smoochum finishes the game. It clocks in with a final time of 1 hour, 43 minutes and 58 seconds, with 7 resets at level 77. This is a game time of 6 hours and 31 minutes. This playthrough was quite dominant. We could spend some time talking about overkill here and comparing these results with other Pokemon, but with Smoochum I don't really think it's interesting or necessary. Its typing is just fantastic. There are only a few things that I need to solve, so let's jump way ahead into the run when I'm facing the rival in Burned Tower to talk about them. The first obvious difference between my first and second playthroughs in Generation 2 is the fact that now I am able to use Hidden Power, and in this case I'm just going to be using Hidden Power Dark. This ensures that my Smoochum's DVs are perfect. Now you might ask, why not use Hidden Power Bug or Hidden Power Fighting to have super effective damage against Karen? Well, that only really helps against the Umbreon, and I don't really want to hit it with a physical move anyways, plus Hidden Power Fighting's DVs are absolutely trash. You get 12 in your attack and 12 in your defense, and then you get 3 in your HP as a result. Hidden Power Bug is significantly better with 13 attack and defense and 15 HP. However, bug moves just don't solve that many problems throughout the run. Like, yeah, they're kind of good against Will, but Hidden Power Dark is going to be very good against Will. And right before him, I'm going to make another update to this playthrough, so I have the potential to go in and face him at level 53, but overall, I just want the league to go by as fast and consistently as possible, so I'm going to use all 7 of my rare candies to bring Smoochum up to level 60 before starting. Here, I think it's worth noting that I no longer have Hidden Power Dark, which I just spent a little bit of time talking about, and that's just because you don't need it. Like, you could hold on to it if you really want, but Will is pretty bad anyways, especially when Smoochum is level 60. I sweep through his team, taking only a little bit of damage in the process. Koga and Bruno are both completely irrelevant due to my typing. In a surprising turn of events, Smoochum actually benefits the most from the rare candies against Koga. Against Bruno, it had guaranteed 1-hits no matter what, even at the lower level. Whereas against Koga, I now have a guaranteed 2-hit on the Fortress, where before I had a 77% chance to 2-hit. So I guess the results here are a little bit better, but either way, these trainers just don't matter. Karen, of course, is the one that does. Fighting her at level 61 guarantees Smoochum a 2-hit on the Umbreon, as well as a 2-hit on the Houndoom when using Return. I also outspeed her entire team for additional consistency and 1-hit her final 3 Pokemon. Now if everything is fair in the world, this fight should cause some resets. Smoochum is making it through here just because it knows Sing and can use this against the Houndoom. That being said, if I don't get a successful Sing, I can just quickly reset and start the battle all over again, and it doesn't bleed that much time. I think that this is the best way to balance all these strategies. I'm going into this fight at the highest possible level while not bleeding a lot of time facing wild Pokemon throughout the playthrough, and as a result I also open the door to a fast possible finish time if I don't have resets here. In this case, after 2, I finish off the rest of our team and move on to Lance. Using the rare candies earlier on in the league basically solved his entire team, because I'm now faster than the Aerodactyl, so there's no way for it to knock me out. The only way I lose here is if Charizard gets a critical hit. The next battle of note is actually one that I normally don't talk about. I really want Smoochum to be level 70 by the time it is facing blue, so I need a little bit more experience after I defeat Janine. As a result, I'm going to face the guy named Cal, who fights you in this building in Viridian City. He has all 3 fully evolved Johto starters, so he gives quite good experience yields if you need a little bit more just to level up. I think this is the first time I've ever talked about him in any of my videos. By the way, as a kid, I used to love facing him, and a cool fact about him is that his team is replaced by one of your friend's teams, I think whenever you use the mystery gift feature, which was extremely awesome when I was a kid. I remember being on vacation and facing my friends' teams in here, which always felt so awesome. So the experience from that fight brings me to 70, which is convenient. I go up against blue, and here I make a critical misplay. The damage ranges that I have ensure that I'm going to be able to 2-hit the Arcanine, so I figured I can just knock it out and it's going to be fine. However, I should really be using Sing here. Due to this misplay, it uses Flamethrower, which burns Smoochum, and that chip damage I think is the thing that didn't allow me to recover enough with the leftovers, so that the Gyarados uses Hyper Beam, finishing Smoochum off. If I had just had more health and it had gone for Rain Dance, I would have won this fight, so that reset is particularly painful to me. In the next attempt though, I just put the Arcanine to sleep and finish it off without issue. After that, I realized that I had forgotten Misty. Oops. I defeat her. It was a little bit close, but in the end it doesn't matter. Now, let's talk about Red. For this fight, I left the solution the same as it was in my previous playthrough. By the way, fighting Cal as well as fighting Misty gave me enough experience to be level 72, so I'm able to use 3 rare candies to be level 75 here, ensuring that I have 1 more speed than the Charizard. By the way, I should mention earlier in the playthrough, I did buy 3 Carbos in the Goldenrod department store just to ensure that I had this speed here at level 75. With it, I'm able to put the Charizard to sleep with Sing. I have to wait until this happens, so I get 3 additional resets, but all of them are very quick because I just one-shot the Pikachu and then reset if the Charizard hits me. Finally, it goes to sleep, I finish it off in a 2-hit, and from there, Red is significantly easier. Even if Sing misses here and there, it doesn't really matter, and I'm able to finish him off, earning Smoochum a final time of 1 hour, 34 minutes and 22 seconds, with 6 resets at level 76. This is a game time of 6 hours even. With my second playthrough using Smoochum, I was able to improve its real time by 9 minutes and 36 seconds. Overall, I was hoping for a little bit more, but I do think that this is a fairly good result. After all, its first playthrough was already quite good, so there wasn't that much room for improvement. Also, another factor forcing me into this strategy is the fact that I cannot use Curse to set up on the Pikachu, because then I'll be slower than the Charizard, and I would have to survive a hit from Flamethrower. If I leveled up to 78, then I would have a roughly 65% chance to do this, but I think I would need to level up even more to make that more consistent. Plus, taking massive damage from the Charizard earlier on into the fight means that I'm going to have to rely on rest and dodging crits for the rest of the fight, and overall I think that waiting for Sing to be lucky is the faster approach. Plus, you don't need to level as much throughout the playthrough, so you're going to bleed less real time and game time doing that. So if Sing is the fastest way to defeat Red, then I just need to outspeed the Charizard, and that forces me into level 75 for this fight, so there isn't trainers that I can cut earlier on in the run to save time either. So now that I've completed Pokemon Crystal with 4 baby Pokemon, I think it is time for the baby tier list. To this point, Magby has got the best results, so it is going to be in the S tier. Smoochum was only a little bit slower than Magby, so today it earns itself the spot in the A tier. Following it, we are going to place Togepi in the B tier, and then last but not least, we're going to put Tyrogue in the very last tier. I think it is fitting after all because it's a fighting type. So now I'm going to do one final comparison. Why isn't Smoochum the better baby? And I think the answer is actually extremely simple. It comes down to the fact that Smoochum has to train to get Powder Snow to defeat Falkner. By the way, at level 13, using Pound, I am going to 3-hit the first Pidgey and 5-hit the Pidgeotto. As a result, I'm going to take chip damage from the Pidgey, and then the Pidgeotto would knock Smoochum out. And that is at level 13, so I would have to choose not to use Powder Snow to have that bad result. At a lower level, Falkner is just going to completely stomp Smoochum. So as a result, its early game is significantly slower than Magby's. Beyond that, Smoochum is very capable, but Magby overall has better momentum. As a final concluding thought, I am going to bring up the base stat total tier list. So far, all of the babies are clocking in with results that support their base stat ranking. If things follow that trend, that means I have one extremely easy baby left to do, which is going to be a Lekid. By the way, that video is coming out tomorrow, so check it out. And then after that, we're going to go to the Dark Ages, because there are potentially 3 extremely bad babies. By the way, I don't know if anyone knows this, but Pichu's base stat total is tied with Metapod and Kakuna. Yeah, that thing is completely awful. However, we're going to have to wait a while till we see it, because that video will be the grand finale of this series. So there's only one last thing to do in this video, and that is to rank Smoochum in my overall tier list. Today, it earns a place in the C tier, just behind Girafarig, and just ahead of Dunsparce. Anyways, I hope you're enjoying this series in Pokemon Crystal. If you made it this far, you're incredible. Thank you so much. Also, thanks to everyone who supports me here directly on YouTube with memberships or on Patreon. Really, you do make all of this possible. So that's it for this video. I'll see you tomorrow for a Lekid.